So I don't know if it was a full moon this week or the planets are in alignment. I don't know what has been going on, but this past week has just been absolutely crazy in real estate. I've had situations pop up that like I've never had happen before. And after 12 years, you kind of get to feeling I've seen it all. No, you've not seen it all. A couple of things that have happened. I've got a house that we listed, it's under contract, and the seller mentioned to me when we listed it, hey, I've got a 24-foot easement to my property because the road ended before it actually got to his driveway. And I was like, is that in your deed? So, like, it's a written easement, nobody can take that away from you. And he was like, absolutely, no problem. I said, okay. And so we got it under contract, and the buyers met with their inspector over at the house, and they're doing their thing with him. And all of a sudden, the neighbor feels the need to come over, and she lets them know that she's getting ready to subdivide her property, and she's going to be extending that easement so that whoever she sells this other part to will have access to their land. And so obviously, the buyers are like, what? Because it's going to affect their privacy. That's one of the benefits of this home is that you're at the end of a dead end road. So it gives you a lot of privacy. So we have been dealing with that this week. And we have two different title attorneys who both have two different opinions on whether or not she could actually do that. So we're trying to go to the county and find out, are they going to allow that to happen? Because it's my understanding you can't sell a piece of property unless you have 50 feet of road frontage. You can't sell a piece of property off of an easement. So we're going back and forth on that. And obviously the sellers and the buyers are kind of both pins and needles right now, because if this buyer does back out, we have to go back on the market, and then the seller may have to deal with this again. So we're trying to get to the bottom of it before we move forward in this transaction. So that's one of the things. Never had that come up before. The other thing that I've had going on is got another house that's under contract. The seller actually owned like a tract that had the house on it, and then they owned an adjoining tract that had some extra acreage. Had been in her family for years and years, and so that was kind of like an inheritance for her, was this extra land. When the buyer went under contract on the house, they wanted to purchase some of the extra land. Sure, no problem. We worked out the deal on that. And it had to go before the planning commission because it was going to be less than 5 acres. Anytime you're subdividing a property and the tracts are going to be less than 5 acres, you have to go before the planning commission. You have to get that kind of stuff approved. And so she was aware of that. And so the seller had kind of drawn up 2 scenarios and said, you pick which one you like. That's what we'll try to work with. And so the buyer did. Well, then the surveyor came out and he's measuring everything. And the planning commission is not going to let them divide it the way they initially thought they could. So she's all in an uproar now. And the buyer is also the agent. So she's kind of representing herself, which is probably not the best idea in the world, but nonetheless, that's what she's doing. Yesterday, it was like back and forth between the buyer, the seller. The sellers are in a tizzy, the buyer's in a tizzy because she doesn't like where the line is, and that's got to be moved. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, lady. I'm not on the planning commission. I can't control what they decide. So we're still dealing with that today. And then I've got another one that the seller got all upset with me because he had asked for a pressure washer recommendation. I gave them a pressure washer recommendation. They weren't happy with the price. They weren't happy with a couple of things that this guy did. Apparently a shed didn't get resecured properly. The water didn't get turned off or something like that because he didn't live there. So he had the water turned off, and the guy was supposed to turn the water off when he got done, and he had not done that. The guy sends me a 3-page long text message at 10 o'clock at night just going off about this situation. And I'm like, this is why I hate to recommend people to my sellers to do jobs, because they may do a bang up job for 5 different people, and you think, great, now I've found that person that I can recommend to everybody, and then you have a situation like this happen. And I get, like, everybody has a bad day. Something always happens. But it just makes it very frustrating when somebody that you are trusting with your recommendation let your client down, because it ends up being a reflection on me even though I really had nothing to do with the whole thing other than I said, hey, this guy could probably do it for you if you want it done. So it's just been a week. That's only part of the stuff I've been dealing with. But some weeks in real estate, things are great. You're going on listing appointments, you're getting deals under contract. But a lot of the times, there's a lot of stress involved in the situation as well. And unfortunately, when any time a problem arrives, it's always the realtor's fault. It's not our fault. A lot of the time, like the planning commission, I'm not on the planning commission. I can't control that. But at the end of the day, they're always going to get upset with the realtor, whether it's the buyer, whether it's the seller, whether it's the other agent. Like, we're just the punching bag sometimes. And it is hard when you have several problems coming in at you at one time. Just be able to breathe, take a deep breath, and try to control the situations and get everybody to de-escalate those emotions, because it's real easy. We're human too, and it's easy for us to kind of get caught up in the emotion. And last night, I'm not going to tell you, I went home and I was just like, I am so over this stuff right now. But I had a really good time playing with my granddaughter when I got home. I went to bed, I had a good night's sleep, and I woke up this morning with a much better attitude. So hopefully we can tackle some of these problems, get them resolved to everyone's satisfaction, and still get the deals to closing.